Hey guys, it's November 15th and the Bitcoin price is retracing back to $88,000 per coin. So it's dropped from 93 to 88. And really the main reason is to do with this Fed chair, Powell, actually giving indications to the market in yesterday's economic forum meeting that he made a mention that the Fed doesn't need to be in a hurry to actually reduce interest rates. Now he's made this comment in anticipation of the final FOMC meeting in December. He's made that comment just to kind of slow down this train journey that we're in, which is the major central banking institutions are in the cheap money era where they're expected to be constantly reducing their rates at a gradual pace. So he's made this comment just to hold on the brakes on that journey. But, I think the financial markets, the way they've reacted is, okay, there's a slight breaks happening. Let's kind of make a momentary pause on pouring in this tremendous liquidity in the financial markets in terms of investing in equities, in stocks, high premium stocks, and most certainly cryptos, and particularly on Bitcoin. And that's the reason why we've seen this slight dip in the Bitcoin price, as I just mentioned earlier on. So don't despair. It's just a cautious move that this Fed chair has made, nothing more. But we all know that there is certainly going to be this next 25 basis point, which is a quarter of a percentage point cut in the Fed's meeting December, and also the Bank of England. They're also going to be following suit, as well as the ECB, because as I've just mentioned, we're in this cheap money era where there is tremendous pressure for countries, major economies in the world, to inject money and capital into these capital markets. And as we all know, the US is obviously has the majority of the capital markets in the world. So that's why I always place huge interest on what's going on the side of the pond. So don't despair. That's how I would interpret it. It's just a momentary pause where he's placed some brakes to the markets. On the other side, there is obviously a huge train of more positivity into the crypto industry space, particularly on Bitcoin. If I move on to this next article, which I think is of interest. And if you recall, I made a video on the aftermath of where I would see, what is going to be that 10-point plan that I would expect President Trump, when he swears his oath to occupy the role in January next year, where I'm expecting him to fulfill those pledges. So look at that video because it's quite useful. It talks things about, certainly what I'm going to talk about here, the strategic Bitcoin reserve asset for the US Treasury. That was one of the 10 points that I made earlier on. But look into that video because it goes into greater length. But let's home into this particular article because we all know about Michael Saylor. He's been really the major champion on the Bitcoin community. As you know, his company, MicroStrategy, has been indeed the first publicly registered company to put in swathes of his corporate treasury reserve into Bitcoin. He's going to be continuing to amass more liquidity brought in so he can put that liquidity into best use, which is to acquire more Bitcoin. So set this precedent that the US government is expected to make this move to make Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset for the US Treasury. And he makes on a claim that the Trump administration understands it. He also thinks that Senator Loomis, who is the Republican senator who has been present at the Bitcoin National Conference with Trump when he made this comment, where she advocated that she has a bill in her hand. It's the Bitcoin Rights Bill, I believe, where her proposes to indeed make Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. So she certainly understands it. And that's why he genuinely believes that it will happen. It's just a question of time when President Trump occupies the presidency in January. He's going to make this move and indeed incorporate Bitcoin, in addition to maybe some other commodity assets, certainly gold, maybe some other precious metals for the US Treasury fundamentally. He goes on to say that he believes the US government should and will build a strategic reserve of Bitcoin. He's also made a claim that he wants to make the US the crypto capital of the world. So what would that mean is he was going to start establishing the top-notch Bitcoin rigs, mining rigs across the country, to use its surplus energy supply in order to mine new Bitcoins and incorporate that into its US Treasury reserves. That's what Michael Saylor means by this first comment. That if a bill by Senator Cynthia Loomis becomes law, it would be the greatest deal of the 21st century, he said. So this is the reason why I titled this video, it's the Bitcoin liberation moment, because we are entering into history here. It's indeed, we are in that once in a lifetime historic moment. And all of these pledges, which are piling up, right? Once President Trump certainly occupies the role, he's going to certainly put some of those into fruition, right? And make it a reality quite quickly, and even more quickly, given the fact that he's occupied both the Senate and the House of Representatives, as well as all of the 8 or 9 swing states during the presidential race. So it's a majority, and every other government in the world would like to find themselves in that position where they have a huge majority in their favour, so they can start enacting and making useful laws for the benefit of the citizens as well as for the country itself. It is certainly a liberation moment for Bitcoiners such as myself and the rest of you who are watching this podcast. So this is tremendous news, and these kind of declarations, when they're piling up and they're kind of being talked about more often than they should, in my own personal opinion, the tendency is that it's going to happen quite shortly. Just to end this episode, I want to certainly show you that we are indeed hovering now just under the $88,000, and it's slightly falling, but these are slight retracements, and you can see ever since the announcement's been made by that Fed Chair Powell, we've retraced we've reached an all-time high. Look at this, $93,500. That is its all-time high peak. And ever since that comment made yesterday, you can see it's been kind of going in a zigzag downwards direction into the lower 88,000 mark, which is where we are at the moment. Don't be worried about it. Don't despair. Don't be distracted, because certainly we know the fundamentals and the characteristics of Bitcoin are very, very unique, and it is certainly the hardest asset. And I expect we're going to be bouncing back up in the next few days and a couple of weeks, certainly, to the lead up of that final December FOMC meeting and Bank of England meeting December, where once they make that 25 basis point rate cut, again, we're going to be expecting this to bounce back up. And as you know, when President Trump finally swears oath and occupies the role in January, we're going to see this parabolic run. So this is just a momentary pause. Let's not get distracted by this noise until such time we're going to see the continued rally going forward. And one final comment, let's not just fall into the trap. There has to be this 4-year cycle of a bull run because it's linked with the halving process. I don't think that is applicable anymore. That might have been the case when Bitcoin started out, because it started out, it was just a handful of a few dollars. Now we are in the realms of 90,000 and it's going up. I don't think this 4-year cycle is really going to be fit for purpose anymore, given that things have changed and moved on an awful lot ever since it came about. So let's not be dogmatic by this 4-year cycle and just think of it as a unique asset. It has its own characteristic, and we shouldn't be thrown into the trap of the noise and all the rest of it. I'm keeping Bitcoin as a long-term reserve. I'm certainly applying it for my own personal reserve. So I have Sam's strategic reserve, which is Bitcoin, which is the main reserve asset in my portfolio. There is going to be this continual upward trajectory in price in the long term. So if you're smart and wise, I encourage you to do something similar in line with your risk appetite. So invest wisely and invest in Bitcoin. So until next time.